Hi, I'm Matt Collins. I'd like to welcome you to Bob Weber Auto Mart on Douglas Avenue here in Racine, across from Douglas Park. We specialize in 1-year-old, low mileage, almost new cars. And if you'd like to stop by and see them, or see them on our website, bobweberautomart.com, we could save you between $5,000 and $10,000 on your next almost new car purchase.
Welcome into another exciting edition of Sports Junkies Live. Steve Sparky, Fifer from Sports Radio 1250 WSSP, along with Gery Woelfel from the Racine Journal-Times. Time to talk some Packer football here on a Thursday. First off and foremost, the Green Bay Packers against the Cincinnati Bengals. More and more injuries as they continue to pile up for the Green Bay Packers. Clay Matthews goes down. James Starks goes down. Jermichael Finley.
You said Clay Matthews?
Clay Matthews.
Boy, that was a shock.
Yeah,
it probably came like 3 games sooner than I expected.
I understand the hamstring again, like every other year. But Clay Matthews, Finley, Starks all go down with injuries. Mm-hmm. Of those 3, is Matthews the going away most important player?
Oh, hands down, without a doubt. I mean, you can see how their defense had to, adjust when he was off the field. And, the opposition obviously was elated. It's one less guy they have to worry about, one less playmaker that comes into effect. So, huge loss for the Packers.
I think Finley's a big loss, too, and they need Finley back. Now, again, that's a concussion. He took a wicked hit. Hopefully he'll be back after the bye week to take on the Detroit Lions. But that offense is not the same when Finley's not there to stretch the middle of the field. They don't have another tight end that does what he does.
No, you're absolutely right. You know what I can't believe, and you see this every week, where a tight end goes down the seam, right down the middle. He's one-on-one either with a linebacker or a strong safety, and inevitably he gets annihilated.
Right. I
mean, he's hung out to dry, and that's what Rodgers did. I mean, you got such a fine line to throw that football in there. And, man, I'll tell you what, if I'm a tight end and I hear my name called in that play, there's some trepidation when I'm lining up.
No, you're right about that, absolutely. Now, the one guy that we didn't know much about other than what we saw him play at UCLA when they drafted him in the 4th round was Jonathan Franklin, a guy that was buried on the Packers running back depth chart. DeJuan Harris, originally the starter, hurt, out he goes. Then it was Eddie Lacy, hurt, out he goes. Mm-hmm. Then it was James Starks, hurt, out he goes. Kuhn was already out hurt, so they couldn't give the ball to him. So now they were forced to give it to Franklin because he was the only guy on the left on the depth chart, and he rushes for over 100 yards.
So who's next up? Randall Cobb?
To run the football?
Yeah.
Rodgers.
Yeah. I mean, what after him then?
After Rodgers?
Yeah. I mean,
Seneca Wallace.
No. As far as the running back goes.
Yeah, they don't have any. There's nobody else on the roster.
Cobb goes there. Raji. I mean, it's crazy. You wouldn't think that would be an issue. I mean, I've never heard of a team going to their 5th running back. Mm-hmm. But, it's crazy. Going to the season, that was a big question mark with the Packers. That running game, their running backs in particular. And now it's almost like a strength. I mean,
they've had back-to-back weeks over 100 yards.
Yeah, you got some guys that are actually looking good, and it gives them obviously a lot of hope.
And I give McCarthy credit, too, because McCarthy normally, if the running game doesn't work, he just bails on it and ignores it.
Hey, speaking of
After
McCarthy,
Starks got hurt, I was concerned that he was going to bail now that it was Franklin, and them going, okay, well, now he's just going to throw it. He won't give Franklin a chance. But he didn't bail. He stuck with Franklin, and that was encouraging.
Speaking of McCarthy, I'm waiting for you to bring up the incident of last Sunday's game.
What incident?
What incident?
Between him and Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, you're going to downplay this? Okay, let me ask you this. Do you think Brett Favre would have ever done that to Mike Holmgren?
No.
Okay. Do you think Bart Starr would have ever done that to Vince Lombardi?
No.
Who does Aaron Rodgers think that he can go out and show up his coach on the sideline in view of 70,000 people, whatever it was, national television? I
don't disagree with you that it shouldn't happen and can happen and all of that. Mm-hmm. I don't disagree with you at all on that. But we're at a position now where Aaron Rodgers sat behind one of the biggest divas of all time in Brett Favre.
That is true.
And watched Brett Favre kind of run camp as how Brett wanted to.
He learned from the best.
Absolutely. But he also, I think, at some point didn't want to be like Brett. Well, if you're not careful, you're turning into Brett, and maybe a worse version than Brett at the same time. Because Rodgers knows how smart he is, knows he knows the offense, and probably thinks he knows it better than the head coach. And going all the way back to when Rodgers took over and started getting famous, right? He never, ever gave McCarthy credit through this whole thing.
Right.
It was always Tom Clements. He was the guy that you're not going to do without him. Never gave McCarthy credit. I've said it time and time again. Rodgers is a guy that's kind of like me, where you hold a grudge and you never forget. And you just can't let things go. And
That's all right. We'll work it out.
No, we won't.
We'll have some sessions here.
No, but Mike McCarthy passed on him with the Niners. And he brings it up at every given opportunity, Rodgers, about how he got passed up on McCarthy and the Niners.
But was that McCarthy's call, really?
Oh, sure it was.
I don't know. I'm not
He
so
even
sure
said
about
he thought Alex Smith was the more mobile quarterback, and he wanted a more mobile quarterback. He was surprised by the athleticism of Aaron Rodgers when he got to Green Bay.
Yeah, we could talk on that forever. But going back to their little dust-up there, can you imagine any other Packer even attempting that? Can you imagine if Jermichael Finley came over and did that?
No.
I mean, he was like talking down to McCarthy. It wasn't like a one-on-one. Like
McCarthy was listening.
He was. I mean, he
listened for a long time.
I think he was stunned. I really do. And but again, I think the Packers should have reprimanded him somehow, some way, behind the scenes. No. Fined him. Yeah, absolutely. That you can't do that to the head coach.
I'm not disagreeing that he should be reprimanded. I'm just saying they'll never do it.
Oh, I totally agree with that.
And what you're doing is you're putting yourself...
But that just compounds it. They're afraid of the guy now. You know?
Absolutely. But what you're doing is you're putting yourself in a position to let a player become bigger than the organization.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what you let Brett do for all those years under Mike Sherman. That's exactly where that got to. And now if you're not careful, it's going to get to that situation with Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy. It took a defensive player in B.J. Raji to come over there and pull Rodgers away and tell McCarthy to calm down, it'll be all right. And pull Rodgers away. You do not want this locker room to get on one side or the other.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it happens again, then I'll get concerned.
Yeah, you know what, though?
It
has happened again. Remember what last year he had that little run-in? Was it last year or the year before?
Acting like a 2-year-old.
Yeah, right, exactly.
About throwing the challenge.
Exactly. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, to me, at times is like incredibly mature, beyond his years. And then the next minute I'll go, man, you're back in high school.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like there's a dichotomy there with his personality.
If it happens again on the sidelines and nothing's done, then I'll become greatly concerned. But considering all the exposure this thing has gotten between Rodgers and McCarthy, I would be willing to bet you never see this again between these two going forward.
I'll bet McCarthy made it perfectly clear it's not going to happen again.
Yeah, but what's he going to say? We're going to start Seneca Waltz next week? Rodgers isn't going to believe you on that.
No doubt.
What's the consequence going to be, Coach, if I yell at you again? Tell me.
You know what, though? Rodgers showed this when he came into the league. He had a little arrogance, too.
This is now we're seeing the real Aaron Rodgers.
We saw at the outset.
This is the guy
Remember
that came in, right.
Exactly.
And players in that locker room weren't big fans of Aaron Rodgers when he came in because he thought he was a know-it-all, brash, young, cocky quarterback. Right? And then he got humbled quickly when he looked like garbage in preseason at the beginning of his career. And then the next year, they were considering taking Vince Young, we find out later.
And it's unfortunate because the last couple of years, he has been a model guy, though, for the most part. I mean, we talked about that little incident on the sidelines, but, I mean, he is good in the community. He's good for the most part.
Does a lot of work for the match.
He does. So we're not ripping him as a person, but as the leader of that team, the undisputed leader of that team, he's got to show better control of his emotions.
I'm telling you, I think going all the way back between this Niners thing and then him never giving him credit, I just don't think Rodgers has ever had that type of maybe the respect level for McCarthy that you would want your quarterback to have. Favre definitely had huge respect for Holmgren.
No doubt.
I don't think Favre ever had huge respect for Mike Sherman. I think he walked all over Mike Sherman and did what he wanted because he didn't respect him. And I'm concerned that may be happening with Rodgers and McCarthy. Not that he'll walk over McCarthy because McCarthy won't let it happen, I don't think.
You know the crazy thing about it, though, after he vented, it seems like Rodgers got back into the zone. I mean, he went off. What did he complete, like 6 straight passes? So it was almost like something was bugging him. I mean, it didn't just happen then.
What about...
He snapped it, but it was things leading up to the game. You could tell he wasn't his normal self.
One last thing. What about these late games struggles, I guess you could say, for the Packers, where they're not being able to close out games at the end?
Yeah, it's a concern. I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, somebody came up with a stat with what the Packers are down by 8 points in the fourth quarter, and Rodgers' record is, 4 and something?
That's horrible.
It's horrible. I'll be honest with you. That's the first time I saw it. I was shocked. But I'm willing also to bet most quarterbacks' records are bad, when they trail in the fourth quarter. I think that it was kind of skewed, from that respect.
See, I love people that make excuses for this quarterback. I love it. Because you look at all these different numbers of how he can't win games at the end, and everybody has an excuse. Well, he doesn't have a ground game. Well, his defense gave up a touchdown 5 minutes ago. It wasn't his fault. They had the lead.
No,
What is he expected to do?
With that.
I mean, there are more people willing to run to his aid to defend him on why he can't win at the end. And then when he's asked about it, Rodgers says, well, it doesn't matter to me. It don't bother me at all. Well, it ought to.
But the reason is the bar is so high for Aaron Rodgers compared to everybody else. He's the highest paid player in the NFL. His expectation level should be that high. That's why you shouldn't make excuses. Tell me
the times Rodgers has won games at the end of games.
I agree. Totally. I'm saying, but because he is
Manning, you can cite examples. You can cite examples with both Manning brothers. You can cite examples with Brady. You can cite examples with all the premier quarterbacks.
I'd be curious what the record is, though, in the similar situation. Just out of curiosity. I don't know.
Just going back to McCarthy, Favre was 3-2 in games decided by 7 points or less. And then the rest of that record is all on Rodgers being horrible. Mm-hmm. Again, go back to the first year. What did he lose? 7 games at 4 points or less or something like that? And everybody said, well, that was his defense now. Well, whose fault was it in the playoff game when he turned over the ball to the Cardinals and they went the other way with a touchdown? Was that the defense's fault?
No question.
I mean, come on. I got no issues with Aaron Rodgers, but my God, enough is enough. He's having a problem closing games. And it's not like Favre. Gary, it's not like Favre. And Gary Ellerson, my co-host on the Big Show, our afternoon show on WSSP, said it the other day. He said, look, with Brett, you knew you were going to win some and you knew you were going to lose some.
I agree.
But when you lost him, it was because he was going to force the ball, trying to make a play, it was going to be intercepted, and that's how the game was going to end. He goes, Rodgers doesn't even do that. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, out of downs, let's go home.
Having said all that, and you're absolutely right. I'm not going to...
That pass he threw down the left sideline of James Jones with 2 guys on him throwing out of bounds. That was a total waste of a throw.
Absolutely. No question.
Horrible. And then he had Ross, who just got cut, brilliant, out of the backfield, which never should have been in there with under 2 minutes to go. He overthrows him. That was a horrible throw.
I agree.
That was all in that same drive.
I agree. Having said all that, how many quarterbacks would you take before Aaron Rodgers?
Oh, I'm not saying he's not the...
That is the one flaw, the one blemish on his resume that people can point to. He's not a closer.
Right.
Okay. But in the big picture, he's really, really good.
Sure. But like Peyton Manning, he's really, really good. Yeah, and like Brett Favre,
the best ever.
And like Brett Favre, he's really, really good. Yeah, you know what's so good about him? They're great regular season quarterbacks.
And how many Super Bowl victories do all 3 quarterbacks have? One each. Exactly.
That's my point. You can talk about how great they are in the regular season, and that's fine and dandy. And when you get to the postseason, and Peyton Manning throws interceptions and chokes, one of the biggest chokes of all time, and Brett Favre gets to the postseason, right? And Brett Favre gets to the postseason and chokes and throws interceptions, same as Peyton Manning. And now you look at Aaron Rodgers and go, well, he's not going to throw the interceptions and choke. I mean, that's true. He's not. He's not going to do it. But he's still
But you know what? Aaron Rodgers still has plenty left in his tank. It's not like he's a 35-year-old wash-up quarterback. He's not. He can turn this around and still have a great career.
Said the same thing about Brett.
I mean, he could...
Said the same thing about Brett Favre.
Yeah.
We said the same thing about Peyton Manning. And now here we said quarterback number 3 who has won early in his career we're saying the same.
But how many quarterbacks in the history of the NFL have that reputation of being closers? There's not many. I mean, that's really hard to do at the NFL level. Can you name some?
I bet you he will go down as probably the worst or one of the worst all-time Hall of Fame quarterbacks in closing situations. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame.
He's got change.
He's going to be in the Hall of Fame.
In the next 4 or 5 years, he's got change.
He may go down as the worst one. Now, again, Packer fan goes, who cares? He's in the Hall of Fame, Sparky. You're right. Who does care? But it will stick with him forever if he doesn't figure it out. He's Gery Woelfel. I'm Steve Sparky Fifer. An exciting live edition of Sports Junkies. And other side behind the camera, Nashville born.
Our closer.
Yeah. Our executive producer, Greg Geeson. Thanks for the great fine work that Greg has done operating the camera, sweating profusely behind the camera right now. Yeah. Enjoy the rest of your day here at RacineSportsZone.com.